Hello, everyone. I'm Richard Herskowitz. I'm the artistic and executive director of the Ashland Independent Film Festival. You have just seen Happy Cleaners, and we are here with the co-directors and co-writers of the film, Julian Kim and Peter S. Lee. Julian waved his hand, and now Peter, that's you there, hi. And we also have one of the lead actors from the film, Charles Ryu, is here to talk with us. So let's get right in it. I just, independent films are often made by people who really feel compelled to address concerns that they do not feel have been reflected on the screen before. For you, with your backgrounds growing up in a Koreatown part of New York, what was your feeling about what really needed to be voiced and expressed in film that you could bring with the making of your film?
I think for us, yeah, really, like you said, it really began with, stories like ours are not, readily available. And so we're just feeling like we wanted to tell our own story. And that was really sort of the engine behind all of this. But I think it ended up sort of being like a very much of a healing process, as we were kind of reminiscing how we grew up and just kind of talking amongst our creative team members, because we always like to say that, and it's true, this is a collective experience. It's a story that kind of, it's not just, Julian and my story, but just so many of us have experienced this type of life. So we just thought it was really important to, document that experience. And really, that was really what launched us to create this film.
Julie, you want to add to that anything?
Yeah, I think in addition to what Peter was saying, it's a collective experience, but it's also a very unique experience. I think you don't see much about the Korean American immigrant family in Flushing, and we try to emulate that in terms of our own experiences. And what we found refreshing was a lot of people, especially from our community, thought it was so good to see their lives being protected on the big screen. We try to like talk about very nuanced and peculiar things that only we could understand, almost like an inside joke. But I think a lot of people understood that in the bigger concept of it all and saw that it was a family story more than anything. So yeah, I mean, if you watch the film, I mean, you really like caught little things and have questions about little things, but that's part of the reason why we try to keep it authentic. Yeah.
Can you both elaborate a little bit more about how much of this film is autobiographical?
So I grew up in the cleaners, and that was one part of it for sure, but probably a lot of it is autobiographical. Like Peter and I would talk about the experiences we had, as children of immigrants, and kind of put that into script basically. And kind of, there were, dramatized moments in terms of like what happens, but everything else, stores shutting down, mom and dad fighting, conflict with their siblings or generations, is all part of stuff that we kind of had growing up. So yeah, it probably is very autobiographical. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about the casting? I mean, finding actors who are bilingual, I can imagine, was that easy or hard? And maybe you could then turn specifically to the casting of Charles as the father.
So yes, like you've nailed it. Finding bilingual cast was an enormous challenge, especially because, again, we really wanted to make sure that the film carried authenticity. So that's why the film itself is like pretty split between English speaking and Korean speaking dialogues. And we wanted to make sure, like, when mom and dad fights, Korean is their primary language, not English. So they're not going to start fighting in broken English and whatnot. You know what I mean? So we really wanted to capture that. And so, many of, especially the roles of the parents, that age range is really challenging to find. All the actors who might be able to, portray that role they're primarily English speakers, at least from the experience that we've seen through casting. And of course, you know, we're an independent film. We don't have a major casting agency behind us to do like the nationwide search either. So with whatever limited means, we're struggling. But I think this is where, you know, when we can say that our film is a grassroots film, and you know, Korean American Stories, our executive producer, they're a nonprofit that's really, you know, championing telling more of these Korean American stories. So they just really reached out to their network, and you know, we were able to find two fine actors who played mom and dad. And you know, because one thought was, hey, you know, there must be somebody out there who in their younger days wanted to pursue acting, whether they've gone on to other careers, but they might be at a point in time where they're able to tap into that again. And I think that theory really worked out. And, you know, like Charles, like, I mean, that was one of the executive director of that organization's longtime friend. And he just said, I know somebody who can play that. And that's how we got introduced to Charles. And because maybe Charles can jump in and how that would happen.
Charles, yeah, tell us about your own acting background and acting for this film.
I see. I'm still getting used to the fact that I am considered to be an actor now, because I didn't act at all. I did go to acting school in 1980s. I went to HB Studios, studied with very good teachers, but I didn't pursue the acting careers. Then 5 years ago, Peter and Julian were making a short film called Happy Cleaners. And I guess they had difficulty, not Happy Cleaners, the Call Taxi. And they were having difficulty finding the father character. And then, of course, the same executive director says, you know, old friend of mine, went to go to acting school and didn't act really, but maybe he could. And then I met with them. They seemed to consider me good enough for their artistic vision. And then we did the Call Taxi, and it was a fairly good success, I would say. So that when they got to write and cast for this feature length, they sort of assumed that I would say okay, and of course I was happy to.
So you really are part of an ensemble, and you know, the family works so well together. It feels so realistic. Could you say just how you worked as a team, how you developed this rapport as a family? Was there a lot of rehearsal time?
Asking me to an actor or to the directors?
Well, since you're on just your own perspective as an actor.
Yeah, we were very surprised at how the family as a unit works so well. I remember during the casting, right? Toward the end, the casting, when the last person to be casted was the Hyunhee, the daughter's role. And by then we had all four principal characters ready, and they're all in the same room. And then Peter and Julian asked us to do some improv, not in the script, but some kind of situation. And then it was kind of amazing. We behaved exactly as if we were real families. We took a family portrait. I put it on my Facebook. They thought they were my real family, my new wife and new kids. And during the shooting, we really worked like a family. I mean, I had this paternal love for my kids, and other actors and staff were surprised the way I was relating to my wife character. And off the screen and during the break time, we're just behaving as if we are couples. So it was kind of interesting. It sort of worked out that way.
Julian or Peter, do you want to talk about this from the director's perspective?
I think on the last day of shoot, Charles mentioned that it's going to be so awkward taking off his prop rating ring. And it's just kind of like, and it shows like we developed, you know, we only had like 21 days of shoot, but during those 21 days, like I think we grew so much bond and so much love for one another. In terms of the acting process, like really for Peter and myself, like we got a lot of help from them more than we were, you know, directing really. Because one, Mrs. Lim, who plays the mom role, when she first read the script and when she first got the role, she was like, no, this is easy. I've been practicing this for my entire life. I lived it for 40 years, basically. So once she got on set, you know, Charles and Mrs. Lim, they helped so much in terms of like changing up the dialogue to make it more comfortable and natural. They, you know, especially because Korean is not our fluent language, but they were able to kind of, you know, change it up so that it's funny, it's heartwarming, it's touching, and they really helped us out on that. And you know, they just, you know, were acting out of their own experiences more than anything. So I think every one of them, Charles, Mrs. Lim, Yoon, and Yena, they all kind of went through one, like a phase of what was in the film. So you know, from their part, they were like, you know, thank you, because, you know, from as an actor, it was easy to act because I know what you're talking about. It wasn't forceful. It was, you know, something that I lived through, so I could match back to the experience and talk it. But from our perspective, it's like, thank you. I think we have an amazing cast, you know, who understands the story and everything. So it was I think a really nice kind of harmonic moment. Yeah.
I mean, for example, I mean, I grew up in Los Angeles, and my parents had a dry cleaning drop-off store.
Right.
So, you know, my story, and I behaved somewhat like Kevin character when I was his age, talking to my dad. So, you know, reading the script is sometimes like too close to home.
Right.
So it is our story. Yes, it is a story reflecting what Peter and Julian observed and lived through, but many of the actors also lived the same story, same universal story in a distinctive characters of their own context.
Right. And I'd add, as far as the director's contributions, besides the script, the production design, the clutter of the apartment, for example, and the food, all must have contributed to that family feeling. You want to say something about, you know, the production design, just to start with? And I also want to ask about that incredible food, which it just made me really hungry. As soon as this is over, I want to find some Korean food. But go ahead.
Well, I think we should, you know, when I say like the creative team, you know, a lot of our the team members shared a lot of similar experiences. Our production designers were themselves Korean American, and so it's just images of their home that they just had to kind of, you know, put together. So I think that really helped. It just came from something that they grew up with, and then, you know, with, you know, food, I mean, essentially it was so important because that was the tool that family members were using to say I love you. And so you know, and also we wanted to make sure that we're introducing different types of food. You know, when you think of, you know, Korean food, the popular stuff are like kimchi and the barbecue, but there's so much more than that. And we just really wanted to introduce to the world, well, this is what we grew up eating and what we sort of, you know, want to eat every so often, you know? And so just wanted to share that with the world.
And one of the main dishes was actually cooked by Peter's mom. She actually prepared the chicken casserole, and we all feasted after that. After we shot, we were like waiting for that beauty shot to be over. Like we just kind of dug into that. It was wonderful. It was really like a family contribution. So Peter's mom did that, but Mrs. Lim also cooked some parts of the food as well. So
I just want to ask you, Julian, Peter, just about the fierce authenticity of the film that comes through. That, you know, this is harsh in many places. This isn't a prettified view. It's not like two filmmakers are coming who are going to create positive images, you know, that show the world a kind of a sugar-coated view of immigrant experience. You want to say something about that?
Well, I think, yeah, there were many times when we were writing, we had to step away from the script just because it was like too real and too raw for us. Like we were basically reliving the past. And this was like before, or even now, like kind of sorted out what was going on through us in terms of like the kind of struggles we faced growing up. Like the financial struggles is definitely a big component. but also the generational struggle, expectations that we're kind of facing and going through. So, when we were writing this, we were talking about, the kind of struggles we had and why should we, put this story out there ultimately? Why is it important for us to share this kind of, almost very personal and private moment to basically the audience? And we thought that there was a need. We thought there was a desire and hunger for this kind of story. So, we just said, what, let's just be vulnerable. Let's go out there and share what we can. And we were, we didn't compromise in terms of like, let's sugarcoat what happened. Let's sugarcoat like that everything's gonna be okay. Let's give it a Hollywood ending that the store picks up and everything is back to normal and it's better than before. And the way we ended it was a very intentional way of, we are still living it, we're still going through it. So let's just make sure that that is part of it. So yeah, I mean, that's one way that we put our.
Yeah. And I do believe, I mean, I get the sense that the writing and the making of the film was therapeutic for you in some respect, and I think it will be for audience members as well, not only Korean Americans, but a broader audience. So do you want to say something about getting this film to a larger audience now? What are your hopes and plans for the film's release?
Well, as with many filmmakers, it's whenever this COVID goes away, we'd love to put it in a theater and just, revisit the opportunity to just have people in the theater watch something together. That would be a sort of a dream. But, I think our hope and goal is we just want as many people to watch the film, right? So an opportunity for distribution. I mean, I think that is what we're aiming for, and hopefully in the near future, we're able to get there.
All right. Well, I'm encouraging people to please rate the film at the end. And also, Julian and Peter, I hope you will check in during the day that the film is screening on Facebook, our Facebook page, because we're asking people to write their questions or comments for you. Then thank you all, Julian, Peter, Charles, for coming and providing your film to the Ashland Film Festival and sharing it with our audience.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.